Welcome to Kansas State. My favorite part of going to any section meeting is visiting other people's glassblowing shops. First thing we'll do is take a look at the bench as we walk in the door, and I will pan across that, and hopefully you'll see some things that interest you. I don't know how good the detail is going to be. As you enter the door into the glassblowing shop, immediately to the left is my bench. It's a bench pretty much like what I imagine many of you work on, although everyone has their preferences. I'm lucky to have a nice big epoxy resin bench, so I have plenty of room to spread out. Naturally, there's a polariscope that's easy to access. Right above that is the emergency stop button for the student lab next door. If they're having any problems when they're working on their projects, if things get out of control, I can hit that button and turn off all the gas to the room. As we pan across the bench from left to right, there's a dual bank manifold in the process of being made. It's mounted in a carver's vise, which we'll come back and revisit. It's been a very useful tool for me. Naturally, there's holders made out of standard taper joints to hold various sizes of things. On the wooden rack, you'll see some interesting tools from Japan. These are your finger holders, and these are the Japanese tools that Mr. Ono left me that I can actually use, and they are very useful, especially if you're someone who's used to working with pulled points, which is the way I learned. There's a set of support rollers. That's kind of something I learned at Salem Community College. Probably even more important are the tooling rollers, or I would refer to them more as straightening rollers, since I don't really do any tubing. And there's lots of nice things you can do with straightening rollers to make your work better, and I'll try to show you a couple of things that it would be useful for. My bench burner is a standard burner like many of you probably use. It has a premix inner fire and a surface mix outer fire. The copper coil wound around the top is for cooling when necessary. I just hook up compressed air to it. It blows through the coil onto the torch, base of the torch just a little bit, and it keeps things plenty cool. The blue box is full of vermiculite where I can put hot glass if I need to. There's my tools to the immediate right, like many of you probably use. The little even heat oven is a relatively recent addition. Across there's a hand torch, a hose for compressed air to cool things down rapidly when you need to, and naturally a cullet bucket and an air compressor, a G-Tech gas compressor, so I can have the amount of gas pressure I want to use. I'm going to take a little tour around the shop area right now. To the left, as I start to pan across, you can see my high-speed miniature machine drill, an ultrasonic bath. A whiteboard is a really useful item I like to have in the shop. You can draw on it, you can make notes to yourself on it. These stacking plastic crates are something I've started using quite a bit of. When you turn them one direction, they stack and the things inside them don't get crushed. When you turn them the other direction, they nest quite nicely, so that's a very useful item. That's the accordion door that covers the glass storage area. I'm really grateful for the G-Tech gas compressor that gives me the kind of pressure I like for the flame characteristics I want. There's a smaller F-lathe with a cradle burner on it that's obviously inappropriate. It's a swivel head Q5 used for making large round bottoms and large work. To start out focusing on the on-off for a cradle burner or a Lathe Carriage burner. This one happens to be from Carlisle. They plug into the standard disconnects I use, which are Hodgson disconnects for gas and oxygen. You can see on the ends of the hose that plug into that there are two inline filters to protect the solenoids from any particulate stuff that might get in from the gas and oxygen. Immediately at the lower left of your screen are the two 90-degree ball valves that are used to control the flow to the carriage burner, and there's a foot pedal that controls the solenoids. Normally there'd be an HSJ sitting there with a 6-jaw sun and planet chuck on the head and a scroll chuck on the tailstock. Right now it's my little F-lathe that I use for some precision work. A Smith little torch with a hornet tip. I love those tips. They don't blow out. You can get a nice small flame. It's a very useful tip for me when doing small precise work. A magnetic on and off holder that holds a flex bar, flexible arm to hold a Bunsen burner to keep things warm. The flex bar holder locks in place with a twist of a knob. So this carriage burner looks pretty silly on an F-lathe, right? That's a swivel head with 4 Q5 burners for doing large diameter round bottoms and that type of work. And I'd particularly like to draw your attention again to the green oxygen and the red Hansen quick disconnects. The insert that goes into those, the inners, are different configurations, so you can't accidentally plug gas into oxygen or vice versa. And of course the torch is hanging on a gas saver. And that is a Fordham flex shaft. A flex shaft is a lot like a Dremel tool, but the business end is at the end of a long flexible cable, so you're able to move around and have a lot of flexibility. The ESL lathe, it has a fire saver on the tailstock, just like I would have on any other lathe. I really like the finned donuts, so you're able to grab smaller size tubing as well as providing a good hold on larger diameter tubing. In the headstock is my favorite chuck of all times. And that favorite chuck of all times is a 6-jaw chuck. Sure nice having a long lathe like the ESL. It has about an 8¼ inch bore, which allows you to work on larger diameter tubing, and the length of the bed and the swing make it easy to do longer manifolds if you like to make those at the lathe, just to use the lathe as a holder and rotate things back and forth so you can work on it. Welcome to the back wall of the glass shop. This back wall here, for one end, is my wet working area. There is no separate wet working room here. The sander is a Wilt wet belt sander with a diamond belt, and it has lock line flex tubing for water to keep your glass cool when you're grinding on it. Overhead I have an assortment of plastic beakers, different kinds of grinding and polishing grit, graduated cylinders, also an assortment of different sizes of brushes, bottle brushes, things to get into round bottom flasks that have flexible heads. Probably 95% of the glass cutting that I can do, I do on this old Felker wet saw. It has a push-in table here that slides back and forth into the diamond blade. The water cooling are just these 2 flexible tubes that come in on the sides to direct the water towards the front of the diamond blade. And then just these 2 heavy aluminum blocks. It's a very nice, very versatile thing because you're able to hang things off the edge. If you've got side arms, almost always you're able to find a way to cut something efficiently. What it's not quite so good for is multiple cuts at specific lengths. If I need to do that on a lot of tubing, I'll use a Dyna Cut Saw. A Dyna Cut Saw with a 14-inch diamond blade. It's great for very repeatable cuts. It's a super smooth saw. If you've ever used one, you probably appreciate it as much as I do. For precision and multiples, it's hard to beat the Dyna Cut. This is just a simple Delta drill press, but it has the water addition to the chuck, and then it uses these standard diamond core drills. They're a resin bond drill, so it's not just a plated material. It is a core of resin with impregnated diamonds, so they last for a good long time. Just like a diamond wheel, though, they need to be dressed occasionally. On my left is the bench that I work at, and on my right is a closet with an accordion door set up to hold tubing. This is a pretty small shop, space is limited, so I have a lot of rolling carts that I store stuff on. You can see the rolling carts. I've started to move away from cardboard for storing parts in. It just makes the fire marshal happier, so I've used these collapsible tubs. I tend to leave tubing in the boxes and just cut the ends open. That keeps it clean. You don't have to scratch it or worry about scratching so much, sliding things in or out. The closet is set up for 4-foot lengths of tubing, and everything's 1.5 meters now. It's 5 feet long, so tubing that originally fit on those shelves nice sticks out a little further now. The shelving isn't anything special. It's just industrial shelving, industrial metal shelving stacked 2 deep, so the shelving is 4 feet deep. The carts are mostly old AV carts, which aren't used much anymore, so those have been repurposed. Like I said, the shop space is limited, so you want to be able to roll things in and out to be able to access your parts and such quickly. I'm glad you all came to the Zoom meeting today. I hope you had a good time visiting K-State, and if you're ever in Manhattan, Kansas, I hope you stop by, visit the glass shop. It'd be nice to see some people. Wearing a mask, of course.